Welcome back, folks. Mainville UTV and Outdoors. As you can see, Project Mischief is completely tore down. Obviously, I blew a diff, so we have a whole teardown video on that. So if you're missing out on that part, I'll have the link in the description for that video. But for today, we're going to be tackling the gearbox. We have to get over to that. Make sure I didn't do any residual damage to that from the diff kind of grenading. We're also going to get into fluids and kind of talk about that a little bit. But there's a little bit of work left going on before I can start putting it together, but all of that will be in this video. So like, subscribe, comment if you find this useful. We'll get into it. So the gearbox on this portion is probably the only thing that isn't easy access to get to. So it's actually right here behind this panel. For those of you with stock floorboards, it's pretty much the exact same process. It's just as annoying with aftermarket floorboards. So the only thing is I'm going to be removing this, all of the plastics and seat right here, and we're going to have access to that. And while I'm inspecting the gearbox and fluids and changing that out and making sure it's good, I'm also going to do an oil change while I'm at it. And then after that, if I determine everything's good, we're going to move forward with just putting everything back on and getting back out on the trails. So I had a little look at things, and it turns out I'm a bit of a liar. So I'm used to taking off the other side for the belt box, but this side, with the aftermarket, you can just take this side plate off, and I had zero idea that it would actually come out of there without the floorboard being slid out. So it looks like I have pretty easy access to the gearbox. Like I said, the other side, the belt box doesn't quite come out on the long frame. It does for the short frame and the Renegade. So I didn't have high hopes for this side, but it's been a while since I put them on. I had them on for like 2 years now. So now we have complete access to the gearbox, everything. It's obviously very dirty. I didn't have a chance to detail it yet, but we're going to get in there and start discussing fluids and pouring it out and see what it looks like in there, and then kind of run through the gears to make sure everything's working all right. So far I'm quite happy with this process. So I know it can be pretty difficult to see here, but what you're looking at is your gearbox on this whole side. This guy right here is your fill plug, and right below it, if you look at the skid plate, like a stock skid plate will have a hole, right below it is the actual drain. I'm not sure if you guys can make it out, it's quite tricky to see. A lot of people will opt out to take the actual foot brake out, and it does make it a little bit easier. For myself, a 13 mil ratcheting wrench that bends, you can get it no problem. Especially with the aftermarket floorboard, you can actually get it from this side, but I can get it right through here, just behind all this, no problem. So once you have it cracked, it's finger loose and you just let it go. So we're gonna pour that out, and I'm gonna just see how bad it is, if there's steel shavings in it, that kind of thing, because I can run through the gears and everything runs great. But I just need to see the condition of that oil. This is one of those moments where you just gotta have a little bit of patience. Other than the dirt on my hands, that oil is actually really, really clean. Time for a change, but it's good. I'm really happy to see that, actually. Fantastic. Now I just got to find where the bolt went in the pan, of course, because that's how that works. Focus. 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 So what you're seeing there is the drain plug. And and on it is a magnet to pick up your steel shavings. You're gonna have a little bit all the time just from constant, a little bit of wear, but this is mine as I pulled it out. It's kind of hard to make out because this camera will not focus, but there is a bit, just a bit of shavings in there, very standard stuff. I'm really happy with that. This actually makes my day because now I know the gearbox is relatively good. She's got some mileage, I suppose, but I'm very happy with the condition of this. So at this point, we let that drain. I slap this bad boy back in, and then we fill it back up. So while we're waiting for things to drain, I want to talk about oils a little bit. There seems to be a lot of confusion all the time on the internet, and I never quite understood why. So I'll start with the idea that there's kind of two camps. There's the first camp. I'm kind of part of both, but the first camp is basically OEM or nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the other side is whatever oil daddy used is kind of the oil I'll use forever and ever. So in the first camp with the OEM stuff, I find there's a couple things to consider. You are typically going to pay more, but the kits are usually a convenience factor. A good example of that is your engine oil kit for these Outlanders and Renegades, that kind of thing. It's exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. It has your filter, your oil, and usually a couple copper crush washers and stuff like that. So it's everything you need. So that's kind of the convenience factor. Downside is you're likely paying a little bit of a premium for that. That typically happens with most dealers, but the way they like to do that is for warranty's sake. So Joe Blow, who bought that 5-year warranty, he's not going to do any crazy modifications. If he wants to keep that warranty, you'd likely want to stick to OEM oils. So convenience and the fact that you're covering your warranty. So those are all good things to consider. And the next thing is they're oils specifically made and designed for your machine. So the additives are correct. They have all the proper fluids in different containers. So different applications like gearboxes and diffs, for example. So you'll have like 75/90 and 75/140 in my case. So you'll have gearbox and all of that, same oil, same additives in that application. So you don't have to worry about anything. You buy it and you're done. So a lot of those things are basically the first camp. So I always suggest that, especially for people who are venturing into doing their own mechanical work, try to stick to OEM. That's always been my suggestion. If you message me, that's likely what I'll tell you. Because if you're looking for advice mechanically, then you likely not need it, but want it or need some guidance. So I stick to OEM that way. The other camp is, and there's nothing wrong with this either, so I don't have a problem with that, is if you find the right application of oil and it meets rating specs and it's directly converted, there's really no problem with that. At the end of the day, it's just condensed dinosaurs. So as long as the oil's wet and you have the right application and rating, there's really nothing wrong with that either. So if you're completely modified and your warranty's long past due, I really see no difference in doing that. So, you know, if you want to buy mass jugs and you're constantly doing your own maintenance, that's kind of another way to do it. So you can bulk up on all the things that you need, and it's likely cheaper at that point. So then you just got to buy filters and that kind of stuff. So I really have no problems with both sides of the fence. I find it interesting that that's the kind of two camps that exist in this. And the reason for that is automotive, for example. You see your car and it takes a 0-20 synthetic. Your first oil change, you might do it at the dealership. They're going to put their oil in it, and then you're going to be down the road on a road trip and you have to go and get your 0-20 from Joe Blow Jiffy Lube. Well, they're going to use whatever oil they get cheapest, but it's still 0-20, and you don't mind because you're getting the right oil anyway. So in the automotive world, no one seems to mind doing different oils, but it's a big fight in power sports. Another example of that in my trade is heavy equipment. You see a diesel engine, 1540, diesel engine oil, just put that in there, you're good to go. But then in that same breath, when you get into hydraulic fluids, John Deere's very specific, Kubota's very specific, use ours, use ours, use ours. So it seems like there's always this constant battle over oils that the market wants. But at the end of the day, as long as you get it right, you get the right kind. So for like I said, gearboxes, make sure you have a proper gearbox oil that meets spec and is the right weight. So that's really what it comes down to, is just do your research. For those who don't want to, just pay the premium and get the convenience of just getting it from OEM. Can-Am owes me nothing. It's the right stuff. It's on a shelf. It's ready to go. It's exactly what you need. So for the extra couple of bucks, I'll always go OEM. I'm pretty sure the gearbox is ready to get filled up, so we're going to grab the 75-140. And if I remember right, it's 400 milliliters. A little tricky to get in there, so we're going to pop over and do that. So we're taking a look at our 75-140 gear oil, and they typically show up with this like multi-tiered tip and a red cap. Right? So what I do is I have a little bit of breather tube, and this is typically stuff from doing like snorkel kits and that kind of thing. And all I do is I snip the top off. I just cut a little chunk, and I have these little adapters that I literally slipped in there, and that way you can just put your hose on top. And now you have this clear tube to make sure your oil's going in. On the side of this OEM oil, you're going to see a whole measuring stick here. So you know exactly when you have 400 milliliters going in or not. They do tend to take a while with gear oil. So some people, if you're near the end of the bottle, they'll drill a hole so air can get in and it goes a lot smoother, but we can't do that because it's a full bottle. But what I also like to do is just get a little bit of electrical tape and just tie that on there so it doesn't come off and I get gear oil everywhere, and we're good to go. So I'm just gonna wrap that up. Electrical tape's cheap. A lot of mechanics will be like, ah, trick of the trade. If a mechanic ever says trick of the trade, he has no idea what he's doing. Don't listen to him. It's not a trick of the trade. It's just you pick up a little thing or two here and there. Make your job easier. And we're ready to go. So before we actually get to filling it up, we're going to put the drain plug back in, make sure that's in so my brand new oil doesn't come out. Obviously you don't need to know that, but I thought I'd let you know anyway. A bit tricky to get it in there. A wee bit of patience. There's that. Now, we just got to get this guy off and we'll get to filling it up. So yeah, the top little plastic nylon is your fill port. It's actually a 15 mil, just to correct myself from earlier. We got to put 400 milliliters, 75-140. We got our little rig here. You want to just slip that in as far as you can get it. And practice a pile of patience. Just give her a bit of a squeeze and just keep checking the side marker and let it settle so you know you put 400 milliliters in it. So far we've only really put about 200 liters. We are right on the money. I got very lucky that time apparently. But yeah, good to go. So now we know that's good. We'll button that up. Fun little tidbit. When you're done, you can put the red cap back on this and she's good to go. Now that we've got the gearbox all buttoned up, you're going to find the engine oil drain right here. You can get it from underneath the skid plate, or since we have all of this off, I'm just going to do it now. So we're going to get that draining. And if you look right up here in front of the front jug, you'll find the filter housing. It's just 3 or 4 little bolts, and you pull that off, replace the filter. So we're gonna get that to drain, do the oil while we're here. Figure why not. One little thing to watch out for, your dipstick. If you don't check it too often, the inner side can get a little bit of dirt in it if you ride hard. So be careful not to like drop that dirt in. What I do is I just crack it and lift it a little bit on the threads, and I actually get a vacuum and I just kind of suck up the dirt as best as I can. That way I'm not getting too much dirt intrusion into the engine. So we're gonna get the oil done. That's fairly simple. Drain, filter, you're good to go. Just make sure you don't fill it up too much if you're using aftermarket oils. I have the OEM kit. I'm not even sure how much oil actually goes in this. I just know that the OEM kit is exactly what you need, so good to go. What you can do is just fill it up slowly and make sure you're good on your dipstick. We now have everything drained out. We have our kit ready to go. What you're going to find in a traditional OEM Can-Am kit in this application is you're going to have your filter, brand new of course, seal side in. You're going to have a baggie of different O-rings and crush locks and copper washers, that kind of thing. And that's going to replace all the rings on your drain plugs and the seal on your cap for your filter that came out right here. So once you have all that out, you can replace this stuff so it has exactly what you need. This is kind of where OEM shines. It's that very minor convenience factor. Sure, you can go out and get these yourself. That's not an issue. And the honest truth is, don't tell anyone this, but you can reuse these gaskets for a little while. I don't suggest it, but you can absolutely do it. So we're going to replace all this stuff, slap a new filter in there, and then you literally get to your oil, which is exactly what you need. You get 2 1-quarts, and then this little guy here, how big is that? 473 milliliters. So that's exactly what you need. When I get to this last bottle, I usually just check before I get to this and then top up, that kind of thing. Keeping in mind your filter housing does have to fill on first start. So just keep an eye on your oil until it's good to go and you're ready to rock. So we've got all our oil in there. I put the first 2 quarts in and then I just started checking it. I ran it to cycle all the gear oil and engine oil and filter oil. I get all that in there. And then I checked it, I needed a little bit more, so I grabbed that little bottle, gave it a couple glugs, check it again, and right about now should be smack dab where I need it. So make sure to screw it all the way in actually to make sure you know, but yeah, good to go. Brand new fresh oil, ready to rip once again. So as you can see, I've been making a little bit of progress. I got all the fluids done as you've seen. And then I put the brand new prop shaft and that's in. I greased it on the table. There's kind of a convenience factor to all this while it's out. A lot of these hard to grease spots are super easy at this current moment. So you can get your sway bar bushings and all that stuff, all of the hard ones on like the prop shaft, for example. So I have all of that done preemptively on the way in. I installed the diff, and the nice part about stock diffs is they come with these covers on everything, so you can install them regardless of dirt being in the frame, that kind of stuff. So I got it in there. You basically put the prop shaft in, get that bolt on, and I put some blue Loctite on it like it had, cranked it down. And as you're bringing the diff in, you're also sliding on this end of the prop shaft. Once you have it roughly in place, you can put the bolt for this end of the prop shaft on, crank it down, and then start putting all the bracing in. So the 2-inch receiver, this back plate, and then the actual frame bolts. So that's where I'm at now. At this point, it's basically a reverse process of the previous video to this one. Again, link in the description if you need to see that. But from here, it's pretty simple. There's only a few things to really consider. When you're putting in the rod for both trailing arms, it can be a little tricky alone to line it all up, but completely can be done. But if you've got a buddy, it's nice to have them guide it with you. Just make sure that when you're putting in your trailing arms, there's 2 end caps on the inner side, and you want to make sure those are still in once you've got it mounted in the rod through. So make sure to keep an eye out for those, because I've had to redo this whole process after I found one in the driveway. I'm glad I found it, but so there's that. And when you have your axles in and everything like that, the castle nut on the end is 150 foot-pounds. Other than that, just make sure you have new cotter pins, grease as you go, and the rest is quite simple. So I think I'm going to end the video there. I've got everything done fluid-wise. I know that earlier in the video, I think I said 150 liters for this, or 150 milliliters for this. It's actually 250 milliliters, which is really obvious because it is right on the casing. I just wanted to clarify that just in case I don't edit it properly. But that's all done. So yeah, this is it, the end of the video. We'll have this thing back together and we'll go for a little test rip, make sure everything works, try to seat everything in, break it in, and then retorque, and we're all good. But that's it. So we'll see you guys next time. Like, comment, and subscribe.